blow by blow by blow, we find worldwide flood, catastrophism, quick results, not billions or millions of years, or even tens of thousands of years. Scriptural testimony and physical evidence of a recent creation. We're looking at the physical evidence. Scriptural testimony and physical evidence from Earth which testify to a recent creation. So we're looking at the evidence, the physical evidence, and then going back to Scripture to see what it has to say about it, and they support one another. Methods of age measurement indicate a young Earth. Introduction. Even aside from the biblical testimony against the radioactivity age estimates for the Earth and its formations, there are numerous evidences in geology itself against the validity of these tremendous time durations. The currently accepted figure for the age of the Earth is deduced from radioactivity of uranium and other elements is about 5 to 6 billion years, with the solidification of the crust dated about 4 billion years ago. Of course, the problem with that is if you examine the parameters by which these measurements are made, they're nonsensically contradictory. But there are many geological processes which appear to be at least as suitable for geochronometric purposes as the phenomena of radioactivity, and which give much lower estimates than this. None of these is sufficiently precise for accurate measurements. Just one aside, uranium is soluble, so if you have a rock there sitting there with uranium and lead, uranium could very easily be leached out, especially if it's a long time, like hundreds of million years. And the lead could very easily be original lead. Didn't necessarily come from the uranium. How would you know? Especially long-term duration, like hundreds of millions of years. So, none of these is sufficiently precise for accurate measurements, and all involve the same sort of unlikely assumptions as the radioactivity methods, but they are nevertheless sufficiently meaningful to cast very serious doubt on the reliability of the radioactivity estimates. By all odds, the most important and serious of problems relative to origins is that of time. There are many lines of geological evidence apparently implying that the Earth and its various crustal formations are immensely older than a straightforward biblical system of interpretation can allow. The latter, as we have seen, involves a relatively recent creation and deluge as the cause of most of Earth's geologic features. Yeah, people would think, well, the half-life on this rock here, and with the U-235 in it, and the lead, half-life on this thing is millions of years. And creationism says, oh, no, not even a million, not even 100,000, not even 10,000. How do you look at that? None of those rocks that have uranium in them have even reached half-life by any stretch. Well, let's keep reading. There are many different ways by which geologists have attempted to measure the absolute age of the Earth and its various formations and deposits. In each such method, some physical or chemical process is found whose present rate of activity can be measured. Now, the total accumulation of the product of the process must be also must be measured. If all of this is true, and it is not, then it would be a simple matter of mathematics then to calculate how long the process must have been in operation in order to have produced its present results. Some of the processes which have been used as supposed geologic chronometers involve the influx of sodium and other chemicals into the ocean, salt, and into lakes from rivers. The erosion of gorges or other areas by running water or wind or glaciers, the building of deltas and other sedimentary deposits, the growth of chemical deposits in soils or caves or other places, the weathering of rocks, the accumulation, so much we could measure, the accumulation of annual bands in trees or lake beds or other entities whose appearance may be affected by seasonal changes, the escape of terrestrial gases into the atmosphere, the efflux of connate waters through volcanism to the Earth's surface, and various other like processes. I'm telling you, though, every time you measure these things, worldwide flood, quick. There are also various astronomic chronometers that have been used to determine absolute age, most of them based on the rate of expansion of the universe, which is presumed, well, red light shift, really? And its various component parts, and on the velocity of the light coming from distant galaxies. Because we have the problem, for example, red light shift turns out not to be a red light shift at all, because you have two bodies that are supposed to be millions of years apart, and they're attached to each other. So much for the red shift. The most important geologic chronometers are, of course, those based on the phenomenon of radioactivity. Various chemical elements are in some degree radioactive, disintegrating continuously into another element or isotope. The rate of disintegration can be measured, and if a mineral containing measurable quantities of both the parent and the daughter elements is found and analyzed, then a relatively simple mathematical computation will yield the time period during which the daughter element has apparently been accumulating by the process. Amazing, right? We could throw the Bible out in 2 seconds. Let's see. The most important of these radioactivity methods involves singular, the disintegration of uranium and thorium into radium, helium, and lead, of rubidium into strontium, and of potassium into argon and calcium. Of a somewhat different type is the radiocarbon method, based on the formation of radioactive elements of carbon, carbon-14, in the atmosphere, by cosmic radiation and their subsequent decay into the stable carbon isotope. There is no question that the vast majority of these geochronometers have given estimates of geologic age immensely greater than any possible estimate based on biblical chronology. The radioactivity estimates, in particular, except the radiocarbon method, which doesn't go very far, we haven't reached saturation point. The best you're going to make is like 14, 15, 16,000 years. Usually yield age values measured in hundreds of millions of years, and some up to 3 billions of years. But the accuracy and significance of any or all such measurements are, of course, based entirely upon the accuracy with which the measurements can be made and the assumptions which enter into their interpretation. Remember, the scientific method has some hypotheses and some givens. Say, given, that rock that's laid on the sand right near a riverbed that used to be filled with water. So presumably that rock was underwater. Guess what's in the rock? Uranium, lead. What is uranium? Uranium is soluble. Lead is not. Well, what's the lead? Lead could be original lead, not part of the uranium. You presume that it's not that way? And one guy found the rock on one end was millions of years younger than the rock on the other end because of the ratio of uranium to lead. You can't know. You weren't there. So far too little account has been taken of the limitations with which these factors impose. So Marvin L. Lubenow, or now Lubenow. Creation Institute. Evolution places several demands upon fossils used to support it. A fossil in an evolutionary sequence must have both the proper morphology, the shape, to fit that sequence, and an appropriate date to justify its position in that sequence. Since the morphology of a fossil cannot be changed, it is obvious that the dating is the more subjective element of the two items. Yet, accurate dating of fossils is so essential that the scientific respectability of evolution is contingent upon fossils having appropriate dates. Popular presentations of human evolution show a rather smooth transition of fossils leading to modern humans. The impression given is that the dating of the individual fossils in that sequence is accurate enough to establish human evolution as a fact. However, because of several dating problems which are seldom mentioned, yeah, just ignore the stuff that doesn't support your point of view. This alleged sequence cannot be maintained. To present the fossil evidence as a relatively smooth transition leading to modern humans is akin to intellectual dishonesty, and it's all over the place, especially in the textbooks. I've spoken to a number of geologists who are interested more in discovering oil than in supporting the fossil record, stratigraphy. We don't care about that. We're looking for signs, and we measure density a lot of times. So you see a particular portion underneath the surface of the Earth that's quite a bit less dense than the rocks around that. And you say, well, this could be an opening, a place where something could be. It's probably liquid, not rock. And so you just go look, drill into there. That might be expensive, and it usually is. And you find nothing, or you find sometimes you find gas, sometimes you find water, sometimes you find oil, sometimes you find all three. But the sometimes is so rare that discovering oil is extremely expensive. And that's why a lot of people go out of business doing it that way without a lot of backup. And we don't look for fossils, they say. We look for openings that might be containing liquid, because that's what oil is, and gas, because that's what gas is. We're not looking for rocks. We need to drill in the rocks to places that have openings amongst or within the rocks. So, it is impossible to give an evolutionary sequence to the human fossils because there is a coverage gap involving the dating methods which evolutionists believe are the most reliable, radiocarbon and potassium argon, Kr. This gap is from about 40,000 years ago to about 200,000 years ago on the evolutionist timescale. It covers roughly the period known as the Middle Stone Age. This coverage gap lies beyond what is considered the effective range for radiocarbon and prior to what is considered the effective range for potassium argon. This problem period may be even larger because some dating authorities believe that the effective range for potassium argon doesn't begin until about 400,000 years ago. They believe, there's no proof. Many of the older fossils are found at sites that lack the volcanic rocks necessary for potassium argon dating, and hence cannot be dated by this method at all. Although young Earth creationists challenge the legitimacy of all the dates obtained by the long-term radiometric methods, even evolutionists are beginning to admit that this dating gap presents a problem for them. However, the real seriousness of this problem seems to elude them, even when they occasionally refer to it in their writings. In the past 15 years, the major focus of human evolution has shifted from the origin of all humans to the origin of modern humans, and the very time during which modern humans are alleged to have evolved from their supposed more primitive human ancestors is the period covered by this gap. At least 406 human fossil individuals are placed by evolutionists in this 40,000 to 200,000 time period gap, and hence are questionably dated. The inability of the radiocarbon and the potassium argon methods to cover this time period explains why many alternate dating methods have been devised to attempt to give coverage in this area. However, these alternative methods have serious problems of their own. Of the anatomically modern Homo sapiens fossil individuals dated by evolutionists beyond 40,000 years, 59 of them, 70%, fall into this 40,000 to 200,000 year gap. Anatomically modern Homo sapiens fossils that are dated more recently than 40,000 years of age are not of great significance for evolutionary purposes and are not under consideration here.